Hey, good morning, good morning. They will just let anyone do announcements these days. Those kids are, Hayner and Gavin are they're super fun and always a blast to hang out with. So if you don't know Gavin and Hayner, you should get to know them. Serve in our youth group. They're there pretty much every Wednesday. You turn your Bibles to James chapter 4, and I'm going to continue on in announcements and just say rather quickly, would you please consider sponsoring a kid for VBS? Now, let me make one thing clear. Every kid who signs up for VBS is going to come. Like, we're not turning away any child, and Vacation Bible School will 100% always be free. Always. We'll never charge a kid to share the gospel with them. But we live in the real world, and we know that Vacation Bible School costs a lot of money. It is a beast of a week. It's a Sunday through Thursday event, and we go all out here at the church. We're just asking all of you adults to consider sponsoring a kid. $45 is what it takes to run a kid through VBS for that week, and we have hundreds of kids that come. So you can do the math. It's a pretty penny to make Vacation Bible School happen. We think it's a very vital ministry of the church. A big reason why the church exists is to be a light to the world and to get any excuse for a kid to come onto campus and hear the life-changing message of the gospel. So please partner with us. I know many of you are able to give us your time. You'll come serve. Many of you will give us your resources. You'll contribute. And so please, I think all of us together to Larry First Baptist Church, let's put our best effort and our best foot forward for Vacation Bible School this year. James chapter 4 is where we're going to be. I missed you guys last week. I thank you all for your prayers. Would you continue to pray for me as just navigating some just trials in my life right now? And so thank you for your prayers. I'm back from Montana. I can't tell you too much about the trip. It was really difficult, but I can tell you the gospel is clearly shared, and that's one thing I will have no regrets for. So thank you all for just your prayers. All right, now show of hands. Who here? I know there's two camps in this room, so I want to know what camp you live on. You're going to tell me what camp you live on by just a show of hands. Who here, and I'm in this first camp, so I'm going to raise my hand for this first one. Who here is a planner? Okay, when you have a vacation come up, you're planning every day. When it comes to budgeting, when it comes to your week, who here is a planner? Yeah, I'm a planner to a T. In fact, here's my Outlook calendar from last week. I've blurred out my calendar because I don't want you to know who I'm counseling, but this is my calendar, just like my Monday through Friday or whatever. And then, in fact, I have a preaching calendar that I give to all the pastors. You can, I'll share my preaching calendar with you right now. I kind of use this as my template. In fact, I already have 2 points. This one goes to July 26th. We're going to do Heroes of the Faith this summer, and then I'm almost done with August through January of next year. In fact, I know on November, the last week of November, we're going to finish Revelation chapter 3. We're going to go through 1 John in the early part of the fall. 1 John will be about 10 weeks, and then we're going to go through Jesus' 7 letters to the churches in Revelation chapter 2 and 3. So that's where we're heading. I'm a big planner. I am a planner nerd. Now, who here in the room is not a planner? Who's here just along for the ride? Yeah, Alex, you're one of those people. Okay, Johnny. All right, William. Yeah, that's Noelle too. Noelle's like, Jeremy, you can tell me all the vacation all you want, but I'm just going to be there. And I am a planner. She is not. We're very different when it comes to that. This morning, our sermon is good. We're going to talk a lot about plans. We're going to talk about plans today. My sermon, though, is not whether or not you should plan or whether you should not plan. Because I promise you, everyone in this room plans. I'll prove it to you. You did not wake up this morning and accidentally find yourself in this pew this morning. No, you all made plans. Unless you're a little kid, then your plan was to just obey your parents and come to church with them. No, we're all capable of making plans. That's not my argument today is not should you make plans or not make plans. Here's my persuasive argument. My sermon is this. I want to persuade you and I that you should place all of your plans in the hands of God. You should give him all of your plans. You should submit to his will. You should submit to his plans. My sermon in a sentence is this, is who is the planner of your life? Who is the planner of your life? I will grant you and I that we do have human responsibility to map out our Mondays and our Tuesdays and our Wednesdays and so on. But I will tell you that we have a great responsibility to be submissive to God's plan. Another question I want to ask before we get started is this: is your hope in your plans, or is your hope in the planner? I think too many times we make gods out of this world, we make gods out of our plans, we become too infatuated with control, and we do not give our plans over to the Lord, and we create for ourselves that we're the boss of our own life. And I will promise you this morning, we're going to look at why that would be foolish to do so. I'm going to invite Aaliyah Hadamio. The Hadamio family, they've been going to church for quite a while, and they are a great blessing to us. In fact, Aaliyah's sister and mom just got to sing with us this morning. Aaliyah is going to do something awesome. She's going to read to us the Word of God this morning. She's going to read our sermon passage. Thanks, Aaliyah.
Hello, my name is Aaliyah, and it is my honor to read you God's Word. Please stand if you are able in honor of God's perfect Word. James 4:13-17. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city, spend a year there, buy and sell, and make a profit. Whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we shall live and do this or that. But now you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. May God add his blessing to the reading of his word. You may be seated.
Thank you, Aaliyah. Can I pray for you? God, I thank you so much for the Hadamios. I thank you for the way that Luis and Stacy are committed to raising their children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. God, I thank you for sweet Aaliyah. I thank you for her friendship to our girls. And Lord, I just thank you for her life. Will she, Lord, continue to be a young lady who, even though she's going to make plans and has aspirations, may she put all of that at your feet, Lord. And Lord, I just pray that you would be the great planner of her life. God, I thank you that she was able to read to us your word this morning. God, thank you for planning that out. I pray these things in your name. Amen. Thank you, Aaliyah. Appreciate you. Well, if you've been going to the church for quite a while, you know that I love alliteration, and I try to make my points alliterative because it's a great teaching tool for me. I pay attention when that happens. Well, to our dismay, I don't have alliteration for us, okay? So we have 4 points. I couldn't figure out how to alliterate, and I was like, this is taking too long. I need to move on. So 4 points for you, though. Here we go. Number 1 is this: ignoring God's will is foolish. My first 3 points are going to be why it's bad or wrong to ignore God and to ignore his plans. And my last point for us is going to be why it is right and correct to submit to God's plan. So the first 3, hang in there. They might sound a little repetitive, but there's some nuance in there. Number 1, ignoring God's will is foolish. Let's go verse by verse. Let's dig into the text this morning and ask God to speak to us. Verse 13 says, come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we'll go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. 2 weeks ago, we finished James chapter 3, and in James chapter 3, James says that if you live a life of wisdom, you'll produce a harvest of righteousness, and from that harvest of righteousness, peace will come into your life. That's what we talked about. Now James here is not going to warn because we talked about foolish Christians too. A foolishness is living a harvest of this world, living like you're the boss of your life, and that will not produce a harvest of righteousness. It'll produce a harvest of sin and chaos and disorder. Now, instead of warning foolish Christians, now he's going to warn materialistic Christians. Materialistic Christians who are putting all of their hope in materials or possessions or their life or their time or their bank account. Can I just tell you, it's foolish to try to get to heaven or to secure your spot in eternity by hanging on to the things of this world and making gods out of the things of this world. He's going to warn materialistic Christians that their failure to submit to God's will is actually devastating in their life. It's going to bring about more trouble in their life than they even care to admit or that they're prepared for. Warren Wiersbe says this: when a believer is out of the will of God, he becomes a troublemaker, not a peacemaker. Isn't that true? I've never lived outside of the will of God and went, oh, that was great. I want to do that again. Yeah, preach it, girl. Preach it. Yeah, ignoring God's will is foolish because it just brings trouble in your life. Ignoring God's will is foolish because you will not bring about peace in your life. You'll just bring about trouble. Remember who James is writing to. He's writing to the dispersion. Now, that's a fancy way of saying he's writing to a bunch of Christians who have been persecuted in Israel, and now they've been dispersed rather quickly to North Africa, Europe, Asia Minor. They all left because it was really difficult to live in Jerusalem at the time. Rome had a heavy fist on Israel. So they all scattered. And rather quickly, though, they became very comfortable in their new town, in their new home, and they began to think of themselves again. They began to revert to old ways. They're looking for security, and that makes sense. They're in a brand new area. It's an unknown area. It's a little scary. But they're finding their security in all of these things of the world. R. Kent Hughes, a commentator, says this about the passage. But as life settled down, the cares of making a living began to dominate again. They came to assume that profit and God's will were one and the same. Soon they reverted to being self-made, self-assured men who, though now Christians, live as if this world is all that there is. If they prayed in reference to their lives, it was not to ask God what they should do, but to ask his blessings on their plans. Can I tell you how foolish that is? It's really not a relationship with God at all. Who here has ever gone to an ATM machine? Well, you only go to the ATM machine when you want to get something out of it. You have no relationship with your ATM machine. You only go, and it's a very transactional relationship, and you're only satisfied when you get the money that you ask for. And if it doesn't give it to you, you're probably dissatisfied or worried or calling your spouse, right? You're like, what's going on? Going to the bank account. God is not an ATM machine. He's not a vending machine. We are not to just go to him when we need something. And that's what these people were doing. These Christians were living their lives in such a way that they were the gods of their own life, and they only said, God, would you please bless my life? They're not asking for wisdom. They're not asking for clarity. They're not asking for him to be glorified in their lives. They're finding their security in things that are not meant to provide security for. Ignoring God's will is also foolish because we're not 100% in control of our lives. You ever been around a person who just wants control all the time? They just are so afraid of being out of control, or not having any control, I should say. Materialism is a sneaky sin because before you know it, you've placed your hope in something that is hopeless to help you. Materialism is sneaky because you're putting your hope in something that is not designed to help you. Here's what I mean by that. You know, your bank account cannot buy you protection from illness and accidents. Your talents cannot protect you from the stock market. Your planning cannot extend your life even by a minute. Now, while God says that we should manage our finances, that we should use our talents, that we should plan our lives, he's never meant for those responsibilities to be replacements for his relationship with you. And I think what happens is we look at the things that we're supposed to be responsible for. We should be responsible citizens in this world. We should treat our money wisely. We should run our households correctly according to God's will. But those things are not meant to be replacements for a deep relationship with him. And I fear far too often that Christians get wrapped up into the material things of this world, and they've lost track, and they've lost a deep sense of awe for who God is and their relationship with him. And they only consult him when they want something like an ATM. Instead of ignoring God's will, we must submit to his will as we plan out our lives. And I'll more to that at the end of my sermon. We should plan out our lives, but in the planning of our life, may we be as men and women submitted to him and saying, God, but at the end of the day, I want your plans, not my plans. Let's look at the next verse. That was verse 13. Let's go to verse 14. Verse 14 says, Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you're a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Noelle got me this. She was really nice to give it to me. Super lemon room sprints with lemon, myrtle, and spearmint oils for my office. She came into my office one day and said, Jeremy, you need this. So here it is. And she gave me this lemon room spritz, and I just want to share with you just another illustration. If you've been here at the church, you've seen this before, but we'll keep doing it because I think repetition is also a good learning tool. This is your life. Watch the vapors come out of this lemon room spritz and see how long it lasts. And I really want you to partner that with your life. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That's it. It's gone. It was there, and now it's gone. I promise you, compared to eternity, whether you live for 1 day, 1 month, or 1 year, or 100 years, your life is very, very short. It's very short. So the question is, what will you do with your very short life? What will you do? J. Vernon McGee says this: quit acting like you're the CEO of the universe. You're just a mist. Isn't that true? We're not the CEO of this universe. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 24 says, "For all flesh is like grass, and all its glory like the flower of grass. The grass withers and the flower falls, but the word of the Lord stands forever." James asks and answers. He asks, what is your life? And he answers it in verse 14, it's very short. Now, I want you to know something. Just because your life is short does not make it any less precious. Your life is precious in the eyes of God. Don't waste it. He really did send his one and only son to die on a cross so that he could save your life. That he could save your life. Life is short, but it's not unimportant. Your earthly life is the front door for your eternity. You are preparing, your earthly life, you're preparing for eternity. The question is, where are you going? Heaven or hell? Which eternal life are you preparing for? Your short earthly life is the only life that you have to prepare for the next one. Kevin DeYoung says this about your life. By the way, before you even put up the verse there, Luke, can I just say something? You actually don't own your life. You did not buy it. You did not invent your life. It was given to you, which means it's your stewardship issue. Your life is a stewardship issue. It was given to you by God. How gracious for God to breathe life into your nostrils, to give you a life in the first place. We're to be stewards of our lives. Kevin DeYoung says this: the Christian view of life is one of stewardship. We do not own our lives. We are entrusted with them. We treat life as precious because we're taking care of something that belongs to the King. Look around this room just for a moment. That's why I always say I have the best seat in the house. I really do. Good to see all of you. In 100 years, this room is going to be completely different. Completely different. With a whole bunch of new people in this room. Does that make sense? This sweet little girl might be here. She'll be 101. She'll be the only one. In 100 years, it's going to all be different. It's foolish to ignore God's will and to treat your life as if you're the boss of it. Since God is the CEO, he gets the final word on your life, so don't ignore him. Ignoring God's will is foolish. Number 2, denying God's will is arrogant. Ignoring his will is really foolish, and denying his will and saying, I'm the boss, he's not the boss, it's very arrogant. Look at verse 14. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. That's an interesting play on words, right? He says boasting in your arrogance. He's basically saying you're taking pride in your pride. That's what he's saying here. You know, it's a casual arrogance to think that you can do whatever you want, whenever you want in this world, and that God doesn't care about what you do. What you do in secret or what you do in public. It's a casual arrogance to say, it's my life, I can do whatever I want. It's living your life as if God does not exist. By the way, our world does that a lot, right? The world who says, forget God, I don't believe in God, I don't acknowledge him in my life. It's pretty arrogant for them to do that. But can I tell you this? That as Christians, we're prone to do the same thing. We really are. I know that a Christian cannot possibly be an atheist, because an atheist is someone who just does not believe in God. But can I tell you, it's actually possible for a Christian to be a practical atheist? Here's what I mean by that. If you live your life as if God exists on Sundays, but he does not exist Monday through Saturday, that's a problem. You're practically an atheist. You may not say you're an atheist, but you're living like one. So I just want to encourage all of us to not deny God's will. I want to encourage us from the temptation to say, life is scary, it's chaotic, it's messy, and so therefore I must take control. Instead, what I think would behoove us is to say, life is crazy, it's messy, it's scary, so God, please maintain control. Be in control of my life. John Piper says, it's a sin to speak as if you're the master of your tomorrow. When you say, I'll do this or I'll do that, without a deep, conscious, and express reliance on the will of God, you're boasting in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Now, again, this sermon is not, don't make plans anymore. It would not go well for Maylin if I just deleted my Outlook calendar, right? It would be a little nuts for her. She's in control of my calendar. She puts things on it and takes things off. No, we have to make plans. But what I'm saying is, our calendars should always be God's calendars first, not our own. There are times where he gets to call the shots, he gets to move appointments, because we want his will in our life, not our will. You know, pride, let's talk about this boastful arrogance one more time. Pride is not just thinking too highly of yourself. That is a definition of pride. Pride is thinking too highly of yourself, but it's also thinking too highly of the control that you have in your life. That's also another form of pride. Saying, I am in control of my life, I can do what I want. That's actually very foolish and downright sinful to do. Proverbs 11:2 says, when pride comes, then come disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom. Pastor Brandon just preached on this last week in James chapter 4, verse 6. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Arrogance has no room in the heart of a Christian. Now, I want to talk about differences for a moment. You and I are very different from God. You know, we're very different from each other. And yet we endure most of our differences, shouldn't we? Like maybe you have differences on what TV shows you like, right? And so you kind of share the remote. Any non-remote sharers in the room? Okay, nobody raised their hand for that one. Maybe you have a difference on how to load the dishwasher. Getting married to Noelle. First thing the Nelsons apparently over here. Yeah, I'm preaching it now. Yeah, Noelle and I see very different on how the dishwasher is to be loaded, and I'm happy to say I load it her way now, right? However she wants me to load it is how I'm loading it. Maybe you have a difference in baseball teams, and so you sit on the other side of the sanctuary, right? I'm messing. I know, I'm meddling now. We're very different people. It is good that we're different. This church would be boring if we were all the same. God is different than us. And he understands that. Can I just showcase a couple of these differences? When our faith is small, God's different. His faith, it remains big. In fact, 2 Timothy 2:13 says, if we're faithless, he remains faithful. Have you ever found yourself being strengthened by God and held by him in the moments of chaos? Yeah, that's when we're faithless, he remains faithful. Or about anxiety. 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. So when you're feeling out of control, God always maintains control. Or how about this, when your hearts are troubled, he only brings peace that surpasses understanding. John 14:27 says, peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. But there is one difference between us and God that God will not endure, and it's arrogance. It's arrogance. It's sinful arrogance. Psalm 101 verse 5 says, whoever has a haughty look and an arrogant heart, I will not endure. He said, you got to squash that out of your life. Proverbs 8:13, the fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance in the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. He has a lot of emotion when it comes to pride and arrogance. May we do everything we can to say, Lord, I don't want this in my life. Please take it from me. John Piper says this, it is a sin to speak as if you're I already said that. I'm going to go the next way. I'm not speaking against confidence. I'm not speaking out against confidence. See, arrogance is loud. Confidence is quiet. We should be confident in who God made us to be. We should be confident in our identity with him. We should be confident that we're men and women created in the image of God. We should be confident in the mission that God has given us, and that is to give him glory, to love people, to love him. C.S. Lewis says this, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. It's probably my favorite definition of humility there. All right, not only is denying God's will foolish, and not only is it arrogant, but also, number 3, it's sinful. We're going to skip down here to verse 17 now. I'll get to verse 15 at the end. So let's go to verse 17. James 4:17 says, so whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, For him, it is sin. You ever have that in your life where you're like, I know what is right, but it looks way more appealing to me. Or I know this is right, but this one looks way more easier. Can I just show you as Christians that we should go, I know what is right, and so therefore I will submit to the rightness. I will be a man who says, Lord, I want to do what is right. Why do we fail to do the right thing? Why do we fail to do the right thing? Well, because we treat God's will as this is some sort of burden on our lives. Can I just plainly say this? God's will for your life is never a burden. It's never a burden. And let me say it one more time this way. God's will for your life is not you signing up for boredom. I think too many people think, oh, the Christian life looks hard and the Christian life looks boring. And so therefore, I'm going to live the earthly life, the life in this world. Can I tell you that is foolish? It's arrogant, and it's also sinful. Whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him, it is sin. Do not take any moral shortcuts in your life just because it looks like it's going to be easier on your bank account or because it's going to be easier in your life. Remove the temptation in your life to say, I'm not going to do the wrong thing because I want the selfish thing to come or because I want the easy thing. Warren Wiersbe says this, too many Christians look on the will of God as bitter medicine that they must take instead of seeing it as the gracious evidence of the love of God. God's will for your life is proof that he loves you. It's proof that he loves you. I see this sweet family here. I'm not going to call you out by name, but Jolene and Austin, but it's a really sweet family here. They have these precious kids. They have a plan for this little girl. You guys do not have a plan for this little girl. They have a plan for this little girl. Why? Because they love their daughter. God has a plan for you because he loves you. He loves you. Don't take moral shortcuts to try to get ahead in life. What you're doing is saying, God, I don't like your plan. It's not good. It's not healthy. Doing what is right will always save you more than any moral shortcut will save you. D.L. Moody says this, sin will take you farther than you want to go. It will keep you longer than you want to stay, and it will cost you more than you want to pay. All right, so what is doing right? What is doing what is right? It's obeying God's will. That's number 4. You want to do what is right? Obey God. Just obey him, saying, I will obey anything that he has for my life. He's the Lord. He's the CEO. He's the boss. Verse 15 says, instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or do that. There's a lot of do in there. You know why? Because the Christian life is doing. There's a lot of doing in the Christian life. We are not to be some monk sitting on top of Half Dome, not engaged with this world because the world is scary and crazy and chaotic. No, we are not to do that. We are to be in this world with a lot of doing, with our plans, a lot of doing with our money, a lot of doing with our time. But in the doing, may we all be submissive to God and saying, God, I want to obey you in the process. We should learn to live as those who know that time is short and that the fashion of this world is passing away, as Paul said in 1 Corinthians. You know, in parenting, when our kids were in diapers, Noel would say, the days are long, but the years are short. That's so true, isn't it? The days are long. The years are short. You know what's true with that, not just in parenting, though? It's just true with life in general. Where did the time go? You ever think about that? The years are short. And because the years are short, let us commit to saying, Lord, use my short life. Use my life. Because we don't know if we're going to have tomorrow. By the way, you cannot obey God's will if you do not trust God. You're going to have no motivation to obey him if you can't trust him. You must trust him with your life. I follow the one and only Pastor Bob Metcalf on Facebook. And I love his musings on Facebook. And he just wrote this the other day. So, Bob, I'm going to quote you. I'm sorry for not consulting you first, but you put it out there on public, so I'm going to say it. Here's what Pastor Bob Metcalf said. He just wrote this 2 days ago. Trust and obey, for there is no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. I am telling you, if you live your life saying, God, I'm going to trust you, and my desire is to obey you, there's no other way to have a happy life. Just do those two things. And he just wrote this morning. I even followed you this morning. This one's not in my notes. But he said, all the time, God is good, all the time, God is good. And can I just twist that slightly and say this? God's will is good all the time. And all the time, God's will is good. His will is perfect. It's without error. J.C. Ryle says this, with our short life, let us do what we do with all our might, for there's no work in the grave. We're going to be gone one day. There's going to be a whole new pastor and a whole new congregation in 100 years. So with our short life, may all of us be committed to trusting and obeying his will and submitting to it. You know, the point of this passage is not stop making calendars. That's not the point. But rather, let's not make gods out of our calendars. We must hold our plans loosely, recognizing that God's yes or God's no is always the final word on every single itinerary. You ever heard this line before? Fail to plan and you plan to fail? You ever heard that? Can I also say this? Fail to pray and you fail to obey. In fact, I had a lunch with this man named Don Wilkes. And Don, this is back in Lancaster, and Don was on the elder board, and Don took a lot of the pastors out to lunch all the time. So he took me out to lunch. I was this little youth pastor, and he was this bigwig chief engineer of the B-2 bomber. We lived by Northrop and Lockheed, and so the B-2 bomber was in the air all the time. It was so cool. And he was the chief engineer of the B-2 bomber. And he said, Jeremy, can I just give you an acrostic that would help you? You know, because I had all these plans for my life. I had all these dreams and ambitions for the youth group and for future ministry. And he said, Jeremy, let me help you with something. And he gave me this acrostic. And so I'm going to give the acrostic to you. Here it is. Regarding plans. First, pray. Pray. When you're about to make a plan, first pray. Before you do anything, when you're like, I need to plan this, pause and pray. And give God your plans and say, Lord, have your way with them. And then letter R is research. So pray and then research. Collect data. Find out if this is a good plan for your life. If this is going to bring about a positive result, a godly result. If this is going to bless your family, or if it's going to bless your friends or your church. Do some research. Before you do anything, just pause and do some research. And then after that, and then ask. You've compiled all the data. You've made a plan. You have I don't know about you, but I have like a plan A and a plan B and a plan W, right? You have all these plans. And then say, okay, God, I think I'm going to move forward. I think I will move my family to Tulare. But Lord, in the process, I want you to be the one who's in front of my life, in front of those plans. And if you want to change those, Lords, please change them as you will. And so ask God for wisdom as you move forward. And then letter Y is yield. Yield. Move forward with God in the driver's seat. Say, God, I'm going to embark because I want to be a doer. I want to glorify you with my life. But in the process, Lord, you get the final say. So I thought that was a good acrostic. Now, let me just not leave you with an acrostic. We're going to get even more nerdier. Now, I want to leave you with a math equation, and then we'll leave, okay? So for you math nerds, this one's for you. It's this. Here's the math equation. Life's brevity, right? Life is brief, plus life's frailty, minus God's will, equals a life of futility. I promise you. Your brief life, and because you're not in control of your life, if you don't have God's will in your life, it's just going to be a lesson of futility in your life. Here's the other math equation. Life's brevity plus life's frailty. By the way, those two things are the same for everybody. You cannot extend your life, and you cannot make your life safe. So life's brevity plus life's frailty plus God's will, saying, Lord, I want to do whatever you want, equals a life not of futility, but of serenity. Serenity is a noun. It's defining a state of being calm, peaceful, and untroubled. I'm not saying that means your life is not going to have any troubles, it's not going to have any storms, it's always going to be cookie cutter cozy. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is that even though you may still have troubles in this world, when you are in God's will, you're not bringing trouble on yourself. And I think that's the big difference. You're not bringing these troubles on yourself. Sometimes when people ask me to pray for them, and they want me to pray for some big thing in their life, and there are times where I gently have to say, I think you've caused this great pain. I'm going to pray for the pain, but actually, can I tell you, there's a way out of this pain. You don't have to go to that bottle. You don't have to go to that thing. You don't have to live a life of foolishness. Live in God's will. This pain, I promise you, some of this pain is self-induced and it will go away.